Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the data screen showing human transmissions. The pale blue alien had fought in 37 battles across the galaxy. He had conquered 12 different worlds for the Zelkari Confederation. To him, these new creatures called humans looked weak and stupid. "Look at them," Vextar said to his second in command. "They barely know how to fly between stars. Their ships are slow and ugly. Their weapons are simple metal projectiles. How did such primitive beings even survive on their own planet?" The other Zelkari officers laughed. They had studied human broadcasts for months. The humans seemed to spend most of their time fighting each other over small pieces of land and resources. Their military tactics looked random and poorly planned. Most importantly, humans appeared to have no real unity as a species. "Sir, we have located a human mining colony on the 4th planet," reported the navigation officer. "Our scans show only 43 humans present. They have minimal defenses and no military starships." Vexatar's thin lips curved into what passed for a smile among his people. "Perfect. We will test these humans and see if they are worthy of joining our confederation as servants. If they surrender quickly and show proper respect, we might let them live." The Zelkari fleet consisted of 12 heavy warships and 4 troop carriers. Each ship was equipped with energy shields, plasma cannons, and advanced targeting systems. Against 43 human miners with basic equipment, it would hardly qualify as a real battle. On the mining colony of Kepler 442b, Captain Jake Morrison was having his morning coffee when the alarms started screaming. The former Marine turned. Colony administrator rushed to the communications center where Lisa Parker was frantically working at her console. "Jake, we've got 12 unknown ships dropping out of hyperspace," Lisa said. Her engineering background helped her quickly analyze the sensor data. "They're big, heavily armed, and heading straight for us." Jake grabbed the colony-wide communicator. "All personnel, this is Morrison. We have incoming hostiles. Everyone, to emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill." The mining colony had been built into a series of connected caves and underground tunnels. It was designed to protect against asteroid impacts and solar radiation, not military attack. But Jake knew they had to try something. Security Chief Ben Collins arrived at the command center with his small team of 6 guards. They were equipped with standard rifles and pistol sidearms, nothing that could seriously threaten heavily armored spacecraft. "What's our situation, Captain?" Ben asked. Jake pointed at the display screen showing the approaching alien fleet. 12 warships against 43 miners, most of whom have never fired a weapon in combat. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they reach us. "Orders, sir." Jake looked around at the faces of his people. These weren't soldiers. They were engineers, geologists, mechanics, and technicians who had come to this distant world to dig valuable minerals from the ground. They had families back on Earth. They had dreams and plans for the future. But Jake also saw something else in their eyes. These people had chosen to live on the frontier, far from the safety of Earth. They were tough, resourceful, and they didn't give up easily. "We fight," Jake said simply. Lisa looked up from her console. "Jake, I can rig some of our mining charges to create defensive positions. The explosive yield won't damage their ships, but it might slow down ground troops." "Do it," Jake ordered. "Ben, get your people positioned at the main entrances. Everyone else grab whatever weapons we have and prepare to defend our home." The alien fleet entered orbit around Kepler 442b. Commander Vextar opened a communication channel to the human colony. "Primitive humans." His mechanical translator converted his words into English. "I am Commander Vextar of the Zelkari Confederation. You will surrender immediately and submit to our authority. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." Jake keyed his microphone. "This is Captain Morrison of the Kepler 442b mining colony. We are peaceful civilians engaged in lawful commercial activity. You have no right to threaten us." Vextar was amused by the human's response. "You speak of rights to a superior military force? How wonderfully naive. You have one standard time unit to evacuate your facility and prepare for occupation. Comply, and some of you may survive as workers." "Negative," Jake replied. "This is our home. We're not going anywhere." The alien commander stared at his communication screen in surprise. In his experience, inferior species always surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. It was the logical choice. Fighting meant certain death with no possibility of victory. Human Morrison, perhaps you did not understand. Our fleet can reduce your entire colony to radioactive dust within minutes. You cannot possibly win this confrontation. Jake's voice came back steady and calm. Commander, perhaps you don't understand humans very well. We didn't come all the way out here to give up at the first sign of trouble. If you want our colony, you're going to have to take it. Vextar ended the communication and turned to his officers. Interesting. Either this human leader is insane, or their species possesses some hidden capability we have not detected. Deploy ground troops for occupation. Use minimal force. I want prisoners for interrogation. The first Zelkari troop transport landed near the main colony entrance. 50 alien soldiers in powered armor emerged, carrying energy weapons and portable shields. They advanced in perfect formation toward the human defensive positions. Ben Collins watched them approach through his rifle scope. Here they come, people. Remember, aim for the joints in their armor where it looks thinner. Make every shot count. The aliens expected the humans to flee or surrender when they saw the advanced Zelkari equipment. Instead, the first thing that happened was an explosion that collapsed the tunnel entrance, trapping a dozen alien soldiers under tons of rock and metal. Lisa Parker had turned mining charges into improvised weapons, creating kill zones and choke points throughout the colony tunnels. The aliens found themselves fighting in an environment that favored the defenders, against opponents who seemed to know every inch of the underground complex. What kind of tactical doctrine is this? Demanded Field Marshal Kethvor as he monitored the battle from orbit. They are sacrificing strategic positions to inflict minor casualties. It makes no logical sense. But Jake Morrison was not thinking about military logic. He was thinking about the message they had sent to Earth 3 months ago, telling their families they were doing well and planning to return home next year. He was thinking about Lisa's dream of opening her own engineering firm. He was thinking about Ben's daughter who was getting married in the spring. As the battle intensified in the tunnels below, something became clear to both sides. The humans were not fighting like any other species the Zelkari had ever encountered. They were not calculating odds or preserving forces for strategic advantage. They were fighting like creatures who had decided that some things were worth dying for. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station, reading the emergency transmission from Kepler 442b for the third time. The message was short and desperate. Under attack by unknown alien force. Requesting immediate assistance. Will hold as long as possible. The transmission had taken 6 days to reach Earth through the quantum relay network. By now, the battle at the mining colony was probably already over. Admiral, we've analyzed the alien ship signatures, reported Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen. 12 heavy warships with technology at least 50 years ahead of ours, energy shields, plasma weapons, faster than light drives that make our ships look like antiques. Kate studied the tactical display. The nearest human military vessel to Kepler 442b was the destroyer Defiance, currently on patrol 3 systems away. Even if they left immediately, it would take 4 days to reach the colony. Ma'am, the logical choice is to write off the colony and prepare Earth's defenses, suggested Colonel Martinez, the strategic planning officer.
43 civilians against a superior alien fleet. They're probably already dead. Kate turned to face her staff. She was 52 years old and had served in the Earth Defense Force for 30 years. She had fought in the asteroid belt conflicts
and the Mars Independence War. She knew the mathematics of warfare better than anyone in the room. Colonel, what's the first rule of human military doctrine? Martinez looked confused. Achieve maximum tactical advantage while minimizing casualties. Ma'am, wrong, Kate said firmly. The first rule is that we never abandon our own. Not ever. Alex, how fast can you get the Defiance to Kepler 442b? Lieutenant Commander Chen pulled up the navigation charts. If we push the engines past safe limits and skip the normal hyperspace exit protocols, maybe 3.5 days. But Admiral, we're talking about 1 destroyer against 12 alien warships. Then we better make sure we're very creative about how we fight them, Kate replied. Get me Captain Rodriguez on the Defiance immediately. 3 hours later, the destroyer Defiance was racing through hyperspace at dangerous speeds. Captain Maria Rodriguez had pushed her ship's engines beyond manufacturer specifications, risking complete system failure to reach the colony in time. In the ship's briefing room, Alex Chen addressed his assault team. The group consisted of 12 specially trained soldiers, each an expert in a different aspect of combat operations. Listen up, people. We're going in blind against an enemy we know nothing about, except that they're technologically superior and have us outnumbered 12-1. Our job is to get those colonists out alive. Combat medic Maya Rodriguez raised her hand. Sir, what's our extraction plan if the colony is already occupied? We make one, Alex replied. Tony, what can you tell us about improvised explosives using mining equipment? Demolitions expert Tony Ricci grinned. Sir, if there's one thing miners have plenty of, it's things that go boom. I can turn a mining colony into a very unpleasant place for occupying forces. Tactical specialist Sam Turner studied the colony layout on his datapad. The underground tunnel system gives us an advantage. We know the layout, they don't. We can move through areas they can't monitor. As the Defiance approached the Kepler 442b system, long-range sensors detected the alien fleet still in orbit around the mining world. More importantly, they detected signs of ongoing combat on the planet's surface. They're still fighting, breathed Captain Rodriguez. After 6 days, those miners are still holding out. Alex felt a surge of pride mixed with disbelief. 43 civilian colonists had somehow survived nearly a week against a superior alien military force. It seemed impossible. The Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, using the planet's magnetic field to mask their approach. Alex and his team prepared for insertion using stealth pods that could penetrate the alien sensor grid. On the planet's surface, the situation in the mining colony had become desperate. Jake Morrison crouched in the main command bunker, coordinating the defense with his remaining people. They had lost 11 colonists in the fighting, but they had also killed or wounded nearly 40 alien soldiers. Jake, they're moving heavy equipment toward Tunnel 7, reported Ben Collins over the radio. His voice was hoarse from days of continuous fighting. Looks like some kind of drilling machine. Lisa Parker looked up from her explosive preparations. If they breach Tunnel 7, they'll have access to the main living areas. We can't let them get through. Jake grabbed his rifle and extra ammunition. Ben, fall back to secondary positions. Lisa, how many more charges do you have? Enough for one more big surprise, she replied grimly. The alien drilling machine broke through into Tunnel 7, followed by 20 Zelkari soldiers in heavy armor. They advanced carefully, having learned to respect human defensive capabilities over the past week. What they found was an empty tunnel with a single human voice echoing from hidden speakers. Jake Morrison's words carried through the underground complex. Attention alien forces, you wanted our colony. You can have this part of it. Lisa's final explosive charge detonated, collapsing an entire section of the tunnel system and trapping the alien assault team underground. The explosion also knocked out the colony's main power generator, plunging everything into darkness. Above ground, Commander Vextar received reports of the disaster with growing frustration. His superior forces had been fighting for 6 days against a handful of miners and were no closer to securing the facility. Field Marshal, these humans fight like no species we have ever encountered, reported his ground commander. They sacrifice strategic positions to inflict casualties. They use their own infrastructure as weapons. They seem to prefer death to surrender. Impossible, Vextar replied. No rational species behaves this way. There must be some tactical advantage we are missing. What the Zelkari commander could not understand was that the humans were not fighting for tactical advantage. They were fighting for something much more powerful, the simple refusal to let their friends die alone. As night fell on Kepler 442b, Alex Chen and his rescue team infiltrated the alien perimeter. They moved like shadows through the rocky terrain, carrying advanced weapons and the desperate hope that they were not too late. The impossible rescue mission was about to begin. Dr. Elena Vasquez crouched in the darkness of Tunnel 12, studying the captured Zelkari soldier through her portable scanner. The alien was unconscious but alive, wounded in the leg during the latest human counterattack. As the mission's xenopsychologist, Elena's job was to understand how these creatures thought and fought. The Zelkari soldier was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. His equipment was sophisticated, but Elena noticed something interesting about his behavior. Patterns from the combat recordings. The aliens always retreated when they took casualties above a certain percentage. They calculated losses like a business expense. "Alex, I need to talk to you," Elena whispered into her radio. Lieutenant Commander Chen was coordinating the rescue operation from a hidden position near the colony's main entrance. "What did you find, Doc?" Alex replied quietly. "These aliens fight like they're playing a chess game. Everything is calculated. They have acceptable loss rates, tactical objectives, and withdrawal protocols. But humans don't fight that way." Alex moved through the shadows to join Elena beside the unconscious alien. "What do you mean?" "Watch this," Elena said, playing back recorded footage from the past week's fighting. "Every time the aliens lose more than 20% of their forces in a single engagement, they pull back and regroup. It's consistent behavior." "So they're smart tacticians," Alex said. "That makes them more dangerous." "No, Alex, that makes them predictable. They've never fought anyone who doesn't follow the same rules. The colonists are terrifying them because humans don't calculate acceptable losses when defending their homes." 50 meters away, Sergeant Danny Brooks was preparing for his own mission. The former psychological operations specialist had volunteered for the rescue team specifically because he understood how to wage war against enemy minds. Danny had spent the last 2 days observing alien patrol patterns and communication habits. Now he was ready to implement something the Zelkari had never experienced: human psychological warfare. He started small. In abandoned positions where the aliens had established temporary bases, Danny left behind audio recordings. Not threats or military communications, but something much more disturbing to alien minds: human laughter. The recordings were taken from the colony's recreational files: children playing at birthday parties, adults sharing jokes during lunch breaks, families laughing together during video calls home to Earth. The Zelkari soldiers found these recordings during their next sweep of the tunnels. To creatures who approached warfare as a logical exercise, the sound of humans laughing in the middle of a desperate battle was deeply unsettling. "Field Marshal, the humans have left behind some kind of psychological weapon," reported Captain Zekmore to his commander. "It appears to be audio recordings of their emotional responses." Field Marshal Kethvor listened to the recordings with growing confusion. They are expressing joy during combat? This makes no tactical sense. But Danny was just getting started. His next operation was even more disturbing to the alien psychology. When Zelkari soldiers were wounded in skirmishes, human medics would treat their injuries and then release them back to their own forces with messages carved into small pieces of metal. The messages were simple: "Your friends fought bravely. We hope you all go home safely. From the humans of Kepler 442b." Colonel Rixtal, a veteran of 12 alien wars, stared at one of these messages in his command tent. In 30 years of military service, he had never encountered an enemy that showed medical care to captured soldiers, then released them with expressions of goodwill. "Sir, this is the 15th wounded soldier the humans have treated and released," reported his aide. "They're also sending back personal effects and weapons." "Have any of these soldiers been interrogated or tortured for information?" "No, sir. They report being treated with what they describe as kindness." Colonel Rixtal had fought against species that used fear, intimidation, and cruelty as weapons. He understood those tactics. But an enemy that showed compassion while simultaneously fighting with desperate ferocity was something outside his experience. The psychological impact on the Zelkari forces was exactly what Danny had intended. Alien soldiers began reporting difficulty sleeping. They experienced what human psychologists would recognize as guilt and confusion, emotions that had no place in calculated military operations. Maya Rodriguez, the combat medic, was treating wounded colonists in the makeshift medical bay When she received an unusual request over the radio, "Maya, this is Jake. We've got 3 more wounded aliens outside Tunnel 4. Can you patch them up?" Maya grabbed her medical kit and moved through the tunnels to the designated location. She found 3 Zelkari soldiers with various injuries from the latest skirmish. As she worked on their wounds, she talked to them in simple English, knowing their translators would convert her words. "You're going to be fine," she told one soldier whose arm had been burned by laser fire. "This might sting a little, but the pain will stop soon." The alien soldier stared at her with large black eyes. In his own language, he asked a question that his translator rendered into English. "Why do you help enemies?" Maya looked up from her work. "Because you're hurt, and I'm a doctor. That's what doctors do." The simple answer contained a concept that was revolutionizing Zelkari understanding of human behavior. These creatures made decisions based on principles that had nothing to do with tactical advantage or logical calculation. Sam Turner was monitoring alien communications when he noticed something significant. The enemy radio chatter was changing. Instead of crisp military reports, the transmissions now contained emotional undertones that their translators struggled to convert. "Alex, you need to hear this," Sam said, patching the intercepted communications through to the team leader. The voice belonged to a young Zelkari soldier. "Command, request permission to withdraw from Sector 7. The humans. They sing while they fight. Even when they're dying, they sing. I don't understand what we're fighting anymore." Another transmission followed. "Unit leader, we found another human message. It says, 'We forgive you for attacking our home. We know you're just following orders. Please don't let our children grow up afraid of the stars.'" What does this mean? Alex listened to hours of similar communications. The Zelkari military structure was experiencing something unprecedented, a crisis of confidence. Their soldiers were questioning not just tactics but the fundamental purpose of their mission. Dr. Elena Vasquez completed her analysis of the captured alien. When she reviewed her findings with the rescue team, her conclusions were startling. The Zelkari fight. "War's the way humans play games," she explained. "There are rules, objectives, and acceptable outcomes. But we don't treat war like a game. We treat it like survival. And when humans feel their survival is threatened, they become something these aliens have never encountered." "What's that?" Alex asked. "Unpredictable, emotional, willing to sacrifice everything for people they care about. To a species that calculates everything, we must seem completely insane." As the second week of fighting began, Commander Vextar received reports that filled him with a new kind of fear. His soldiers were no longer just reporting tactical difficulties. They were reporting nightmares, guilt, and confusion about the nature of their enemy. The humans had turned psychological warfare into something beyond military doctrine. They had made it personal. And for the first time in his long military career, Vextar began to wonder if some battles were impossible to win, no matter how superior your technology might be. Commander Vextar stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching 3 more transport ships drop out of hyperspace. The reinforcements brought his total force to over 3,000 soldiers, the largest military operation the Zelkari Confederation had mounted in 50 years. Below on the planet's surface, the human colony had been under siege for 12 days. Vextar's tactical computers calculated that fewer than 200 humans remained alive. By all logical military analysis, the battle should have ended a week ago. "Sir, the reinforcement commanders are requesting immediate briefing," reported his communications officer. "Tell them to prepare for final assault," Vextar replied. "This embarrassment ends today." General Krexdahl, newly arrived from the Confederation homeworlds, reviewed the battle reports with disbelief. "Commander, you have been fighting 43 miners for nearly 2 weeks? What possible tactical challenges could such a small force present?" Vextar turned away from the viewport. His pale blue skin had grown even paler during the long siege. "General, I recommend you observe human combat behavior before making assumptions about their capabilities." "Nonsense. Deploy overwhelming force at all entry points simultaneously. End this quickly." 3 hours later, General Krexdahl was watching live combat feeds from the tunnel system with growing horror. The fresh Zelkari troops, equipped with the most advanced military technology in the galaxy, were being systematically destroyed by creatures using improvised weapons and desperate tactics. In the colony's main command center, Captain Jake Morrison was down to his last magazine of rifle ammunition. Around him, 17 colonists prepared for what they all knew would be the final battle. Lisa Parker had rigged the last of her explosive charges around the command center itself. "Jake, they're coming through tunnels 1, 3, and 7 simultaneously," reported Ben Collins over the radio. His voice was weak from blood loss after taking shrapnel to his chest 2 days earlier. Jake looked around at his people. Maya Rodriguez was treating wounded colonists with medical supplies she had improvised from mining equipment. Sam Turner and Tony Ricci had jury-rigged mining lasers into defensive weapons. Dr. Elena Vasquez was documenting everything, determined that some record of their stand would survive. "Folks, this is probably it," Jake said quietly. "I want you all to know, it's been an honor serving with you." Lisa looked up from her final preparations. "Jake, we're not dead yet. No, we're not. And we're going to make sure they remember that." The alien assault began with precision military coordination. Zelkari soldiers advanced through multiple tunnels, simultaneously their energy shields deflecting human weapons fire. They expected the final resistance to collapse within minutes. Instead, they encountered something that would haunt alien military doctrine for generations to come. As the enemy forces breached the outer defensive positions, the remaining humans did something that violated every principle of rational military behavior. Instead of retreating or attempting to negotiate surrender, they attacked. Marine Corporal Luke Davis had been visiting his sister Lisa at the mining colony when the siege began. Now, with his back to the wall and no ammunition left for his rifle, something ancient awakened in his mind. The careful training that taught soldiers to control their aggression and follow tactical protocols simply disappeared. Luke grabbed a mining pick and charged directly into a group of 30 alien soldiers. He was not thinking about survival or military objectives. He was thinking about his sister and the promise he had made to their mother to keep Lisa safe. The Zelkari soldiers watched in shock as a single human fought with the fury of a cornered predator. Luke took 17 energy weapon hits but continued attacking until he physically could not move. In those final moments, he killed 8 alien soldiers and wounded 12 others using nothing but a mining tool and pure rage. General Krexdahl stared at the combat recordings in disbelief. What was that creature doing? It should have died from the first energy blast. "Sir, human biology appears to include what their medical files call an adrenaline response," reported the Zelkari science officer. "Under extreme stress, their bodies produce chemicals that allow them to ignore pain and injury. All species have stress responses. Not like this, sir. Humans can continue fighting with injuries that would disable any other known life form. They seem to have evolved this capability over millions of years of surviving on a world filled with large predators." Pilot Carrie Thompson was in her damaged mining shuttle when the aliens finally breached the hangar bay. Her small craft had been hit by enemy fire and was leaking fuel, but the engine still functioned. Carrie looked at the 50 alien soldiers pouring into the hangar and made a calculation that was purely human. She could try to escape and maybe survive for a few more minutes. Or she could make sure these particular enemies never threatened her friends again. She aimed her shuttle directly at the alien command vehicle that had just entered the hangar and pushed the throttle to maximum power. The explosion destroyed the entire hangar complex and eliminated the enemy's primary communication hub. Commander Vextar received the reports of human behavior with growing terror. These creatures were not fighting according to any rational military doctrine. They were fighting like berserkers from ancient mythology, warriors who entered a state of battle rage that made them nearly impossible to stop. "Sir, we've lost 400 soldiers in the past 2 hours, reported his aide. "The humans appear to be entering some kind of psychological state that makes them extremely dangerous. How many humans remain?" "Approximately 50, sir. But, sir, they're not fighting like the same species we've been battling for 2 weeks. Something has changed." What had changed was simple but terrifying. The human colonists had reached the point where normal psychological restraints no longer applied. Fear, pain, and self-preservation instincts had been overridden by something more powerful: the absolute refusal to let their comrades die without taking enemies with them. Dr. Elena Vasquez, wounded but still conscious in the medical bay, spoke into her recorder one final time. Personal log, day 12. We have discovered something about human psychology that I don't think we fully understood before. When pushed to absolute extremes, when all hope of survival is gone, humans don't surrender or break down. They become something else entirely. What's happening to us isn't madness, it's evolution. For millions of years, our ancestors survived by becoming the most dangerous creatures on Earth when their families were threatened. That programming is still in our genes. The alien assault stalled as Zelkari commanders tried to understand what they were fighting. Individual humans were holding defensive positions against overwhelming odds, not through superior tactics or technology, but through sheer refusal to accept defeat. In the colony's main tunnel, Tony Ricci faced 60 alien soldiers with nothing but mining explosives strapped to his chest. His friends were dead or dying behind him. The only thing standing between the enemy and the civilian shelter was one demolitions expert who had decided that some things were worth dying for. Tony smiled as he triggered the detonator. "Welcome to Earth, you alien bastards." The explosion collapsed half the tunnel system and eliminated 2 entire Zelkari assault teams. More importantly, it gave the surviving humans in the shelter enough time to prepare their own final stand. Commander Vextar watched his casualty reports climb toward unprecedented levels. In 12 days of fighting, his forces had suffered more losses than in the previous 10 years of military operations combined. And the humans were still fighting. For the first time in his long military career, Vextar began to understand that some species could not be defeated by superior technology or overwhelming numbers. Some species had to be respected, feared, and avoided at all costs. The berserker gene that had helped humanity survive its evolution was about to teach the galaxy a lesson that would never be forgotten. Commander Vextar stood in the communications chamber of his flagship, staring at casualty reports that made no tactical sense. In 14 days of fighting, his force of 3,000 soldiers had been reduced to fewer than 1,200 effective troops. All losses had been inflicted by what began as 43 human miners. The latest reports were the most disturbing. His ground commanders were requesting permission to withdraw, something that had never happened in Zelkari military history. Seasoned veterans who had conquered entire star systems were reporting that they could no longer maintain unit cohesion against human defenders. "Sir, we're receiving a communication from the human colony," reported his communications officer. "They're requesting a ceasefire and face-to-face meeting." Vextar felt a mixture of relief and confusion. "Are they finally ready to surrender?" "Unknown, sir. The message simply says they want to talk." An hour later, Commander Vextar found himself walking through the ruins of the mining colony's main entrance, accompanied by only 2 bodyguards. The devastation was complete. Tunnel systems had been collapsed, buildings destroyed, and equipment scattered across the landscape like broken toys. What shocked him was not the destruction, but the fact that humans were still alive in this wasteland. Captain Jake Morrison emerged from a concealed bunker, supported by Dr. Elena Vasquez. The human leader was wounded in multiple places, his clothing torn and bloodstained, but his eyes were alert and determined. Behind them came the survivors. 47 humans who had somehow endured 2 weeks of siege by a vastly superior military force. They looked like they had fought their way through hell itself, but they were still standing. "Commander Vextar," Jake said simply. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." The alien commander studied the human leader with new eyes. 2 weeks ago, he had dismissed this creature as a primitive miner playing at being a soldier. Now he recognized something that made him deeply uncomfortable. Jake Morrison had become a legend. "Human Morrison, I have come to discuss the terms of your surrender," Vextar said, though his words lacked conviction. Jake shook his head slowly. "Commander, we're not surrendering. We're offering you the chance to leave our world peacefully." Audacity of the statement should have been laughable. 47 wounded humans offering terms to a force that still outnumbered them 25-1. But Vextar had seen what these humans could do when pushed to their limits. "Explain to me why I should accept such terms," Vextar said. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward. Despite her injuries, her voice was clear and confident. "Because you've learned something about humanity that you didn't expect, Commander. You've discovered that we don't fight the same way your people do. Your tactics are chaotic and wasteful," Vextar replied. "Our tactics work," Jake said simply. "Commander, in 2 weeks you've lost more soldiers than in any campaign in your military history. We've lost friends and family, but we're still here, still fighting, still willing to die to protect what's ours." Vextar walked closer to the human group. Up close, he could see something in their faces that he was beginning to recognize. It was not hatred or anger. It was determination mixed with something he had never encountered in warfare: love for each other. "I do not understand your species," Vextar admitted. "You fight with inferior weapons against superior numbers. You suffer casualties that should break your morale. You make tactical decisions that appear suicidal. Yet you continue to resist." Elena stepped forward again. "Commander, may I explain something about human evolution?" "Speak." "Humans evolved on a world filled with predators much larger and stronger than we were. Our ancestors survived not because they were the biggest or the fastest, but because they protected each other. A human alone might die, but humans together could survive anything." She gestured to the group of survivors around her. "Every person here would die before letting their friends face danger alone. We don't calculate acceptable losses because there are no acceptable losses when family is involved." "These people are not your genetic family," Vextar observed. "Commander, that's what you don't understand about humans," Jake replied. "Family isn't just about genetics. It's about choice. Everyone in this colony chose to be here together. We chose to work together, live together, and when necessary, fight together." Vextar looked around at the faces of the human survivors. In each one he saw the same expression. They would rather die than abandon each other. It was a concept that challenged everything he understood about military logic. "Your species is dangerous," Vextar said finally. "Only when threatened," Jake replied. "Commander, we didn't want this fight. We're miners, not soldiers. We just wanted to be left alone to do our work and live our lives. Yet when threatened, you become warriors. We become whatever we need to become to protect our own." The alien commander was quiet for several minutes, processing what he had learned. His military doctrine was based on calculated risk, acceptable losses, and logical tactical decisions. The humans had shown him a different kind of warfare entirely. "If I withdraw my forces, what guarantee do I have that humans will not expand into Zelkari territory?" Vextar asked. Elena and Jake exchanged glances. "Commander, humans have no interest in conquering other species," Elena said. "We explore space to find new homes and opportunities, not to build empires." "But if someone attacks our colonies or threatens our people," Jake added, "they'll find out exactly what happened to your forces here." Vextar understood the implications. Every human colony in space was potentially another Kepler 442b. Every group of human civilians could become a military nightmare if threatened. "I will withdraw my forces," Vextar said finally. "But I must report what I have learned to the Confederation Council." "What will you tell them?" Jake asked. "That humanity is not a species to be conquered or enslaved. You are a species to be respected, feared, and avoided unless absolutely necessary." Elena nodded. "Commander, we hope that won't be necessary. Humans prefer friendship to warfare. But you excel at warfare when it becomes necessary." "We excel at survival," Jake corrected. "Sometimes that means fighting. Sometimes it means making peace. We're hoping you'll choose peace." As Vextar prepared to leave, he turned back to the human leader one final time. "Morrison, what you accomplished here will be studied in military academies across the galaxy. 43 civilians holding off 3,000 professional soldiers is unprecedented." Jake looked around at his surviving colonists. "Commander, we weren't fighting for military glory or tactical objectives. We were fighting for each other. That's something you can't teach in military academies. Perhaps that is why you won. 3 days later, the Zelkari fleet departed from the Kepler 442b system. Commander Vextar's final report to the Confederation Council was brief but comprehensive. Humanity is classified as an apex predator species. Military engagement is not recommended under any circumstances. They possess a capacity for violence and sacrifice that exceeds all known parameters. The report concluded with a warning that would echo through alien military doctrine for generations. Humans do not fight for territory, resources, or political advantage. They fight for each other. This makes them the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. On Kepler 442b, the surviving colonists began the long process of rebuilding their home. They had become legends without seeking fame, heroes without wanting glory. They had simply done what humans do when their family is threatened. They had refused to give up. Word of the Battle of Kepler 442b spread through human space and beyond. To humans, it became a story of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. To aliens, it became a warning about the sleeping giants who called themselves humanity. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never threaten a human's family unless you're prepared to face the consequences.